Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the alien ship come closer to the invisible line that marked human space. The ship was sleek and silver with smooth curves that caught the starlight in strange ways. It moved slowly, like its pilot knew exactly where they could go and where they could not. For 300 years, no alien vessel had crossed into human territory, and Jake planned to keep it that way. The alien ship stopped exactly where it should stop. 1 light minute from the border, not 1 meter closer. They knew the rules even if they did not like them. Jake felt his jaw tighten as he watched the ship hover there in the black void of space. Behind him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. Everyone knew what was coming. Everyone knew how this would end. "Captain, we have an incoming message," said Communications Officer Lisa Grant. Her fingers moved across the blue lights of her control panel. The main screen flickered and then showed the face of an alien. Jake recognized the species immediately. Zephyrian. Their skin was pale blue and seemed to glow from within. Their eyes were large and silver, and they had no hair on their smooth heads. "Captain Morrison," said the alien. The universal translator made his voice sound calm and neutral, but Jake could hear something underneath. Desperation, maybe. Fear. "I am Ambassador Veltar of the Galactic Council. I request permission to speak with you about a matter of great importance." Jake did not move from his position in the center of the bridge. His uniform was crisp and clean, and bore the insignia of the Human Defense Force, the same insignia that had been worn by human soldiers for 3 centuries. The same insignia that meant something very specific to the rest of the galaxy. It meant "stay away." "Ambassador," Jake said. His voice carried easily across the bridge. "You know our position on alien vessels in human space." The answer is no. The screen shifted and Jake could see more aliens behind the ambassador. A Crixani with its insect-like features and multiple arms. A resonant that looked like it was made of living crystal. A member of the collective with metal parts grafted onto organic tissue. All the major species of the Galactic Council were represented on that ship. All of them wanting something from humanity. "Captain, please listen to what I have to say," Ambassador Veltar continued. "The Devourers have consumed 17 systems in the Outer Rim. Millions of refugees are fleeing toward the core worlds. Our evacuation fleets need safe passage through human space to reach the refugee centers. Without your help, countless innocent lives will be lost." Jake had heard of the Devourers. Everyone in human space had heard of them. They were machines or aliens or something else entirely. No one seemed to know for sure. What everyone did know was that they consumed entire worlds. They stripped planets down to nothing and left dead rock floating in space. They had been moving through the galaxy for months now, and the Council species were running scared. "That sounds like a Council problem, Ambassador," Jake replied. "Not a human problem." Chief Security Officer Alex Carter stepped up beside Jake. His hand rested on his weapon out of habit. All human military personnel had that habit. They had learned it the hard way. "Perhaps the ambassador has forgotten why our borders are closed," Alex said. His voice was quiet, but it carried across the bridge communication system. The aliens on the screen could hear every word. Ambassador Veltar shifted uncomfortably. "Chief Carter, that was a long time ago. The Council has changed since then. We have learned from our mistakes. Have you?" Jake asked. He activated his personal log recorder. The device would capture everything said and done on the bridge. Later, it would be added to the vast collection of records that every human ship maintained. Records of every interaction with alien species. Records that served as reminders of why things were the way they were. "Captain's log, stardate 2387.156. Jake began. "The UES Defiance is holding position at Border Station 7. We have been contacted by Ambassador Veltar of the Galactic Council requesting passage through human space for refugee evacuation fleets. Request denied as per standard protocol." Jake paused the recording and looked directly at the alien ambassador. "Tell me something, Ambassador. Do your historical archives still contain records of the Terran quarantine? Do they mention what happened to Earth during the Plague Wars?" The ambassador's glowing eyes dimmed slightly. Jake knew that was a sign of distress in Zephyrians. Good. Let him be distressed. Let all of them be distressed. "Captain, that was 300 years ago," the ambassador said. "Surely we can move past old grievances in the face of this new threat." "Old grievances," repeated Tactical Officer Ryan Brooks from his station. He did not look up from his sensors, but his voice carried a bitter edge. "Is that what you call the extinction of 40 billion humans?" The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of the ship's systems. On the screen, the aliens looked uncomfortable. The Crixani clicked its mandibles in what Jake knew was a nervous gesture. The resonance crystal body flickered with darker colors. Even the collective representative seemed to shift uneasily. The council made difficult decisions during a difficult time, another voice said from the screen. Jake recognized the speaker as Commander Zix of the Hegemony. The Hegemony were warriors who had replaced most of their organic parts with metal and circuitry. They considered themselves the military arm of the council. Perhaps mistakes were made, but that does not justify your current hostility. Jake laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Hostility? You think this is hostility, Commander? We are simply maintaining our borders. The same borders that your council helped create when they decided humanity was too dangerous to help. Lisa Grant touched her earpiece and then looked at Jake. Captain, I'm detecting 17 more ships approaching our position, all alien registry, all requesting the same thing. Jake nodded. He had expected this. The aliens were desperate, and desperate beings did desperate things. They would try to pressure humanity into giving them what they wanted. They would use guilt and fear and anger. They would try everything except taking responsibility for what they had done. Ambassador, Jake said, turning back to the screen, let me make something very clear to you and your council. 300 years ago you had a choice. You could help humanity survive or you could let us die. You chose to let us die. You called it a quarantine, but we knew what it really was. You wanted us gone and you nearly got your wish. The ambassador started to speak, but Jake held up his hand for silence. We survived. Jake continued. We survived because we had to. Because no one else would help us. Because the galaxy turned its back on us when we needed help the most. We learned that survival means standing alone. We learned that mercy is a luxury we cannot afford. Most importantly, we learned that the galaxy has a very selective memory when it comes to inconvenient truths. The aliens on the screen looked at each other. Jake could see them communicating through whatever means their species used, probably trying to figure out how to convince humanity to change its mind. They would fail. They always failed, Captain. Ambassador Veltar said finally. What would it take for humanity to reconsider its position? Jake smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Nothing, Ambassador. Absolutely nothing. You made your choice 3 centuries ago. Now you live with the consequences. Human space remains closed to all alien vessels. That policy will not change today, tomorrow, or ever. The transmission ended and the screen went dark. The bridge crew returned to their duties, but Jake remained standing in the center of the command area. Outside the viewport, he could see the alien ship still waiting at the border. Soon it would be joined by others. They would all wait and hope and plead, and they would all receive the same answer. No alien enters human space, ever. Dr. Elena Rodriguez walked through the long corridors beneath New Geneva, feeling the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. The memorial hall stretched for kilometers underground, holding the complete record of what the galaxy had done to humanity. As director of historical archives, she had spent 30 years cataloging every detail of the isolation wars. Every death. Every betrayal. Every moment when the galaxy could have helped but chose not to. The walls around her glowed with soft blue light, illuminating the holographic displays that lined both sides of the corridor. Each display showed a different piece of the story, a different moment when humanity had begged for help and been turned away. The aliens who visited human space always asked why the borders remained closed. Elena knew the answer better than anyone alive. The answer was written on every wall in these halls. Director, we have another request from the University of Proxima, said Marcus Young, following behind her. He was her research assistant and had been working in the archives for 5 years. 5 years was not nearly enough time to understand what had really happened during the Plague Wars. Most humans did not understand it either. They knew the basic facts, but they had not spent decades reading the actual records like Elena had. What do they want this time, Marcus? Elena asked without stopping. She had been walking these halls for so long that she could navigate them in complete darkness. Every display was burned into her memory. Every document was part of her soul. They want access to the final transmissions from Earth, Marcus said, checking his tablet. They say it's for a xenological study about interspecies communication during crisis situations. Elena stopped walking and turned to face one of the larger displays. It showed the last ambassador humanity had sent to the Galactic Council. Ambassador Helen Price had been young when she took the position, 43 years old with bright eyes and hope for the future, By the time she made her final transmission, she was dying from the same plague that was killing everyone on Earth. Tell them no, Elena said. Some records are not for academic study. Some pain is not for analysis. The hologram activated as Elena approached and Ambassador Price appeared before them. Her face was gaunt and pale with dark circles under her eyes. The bioweapon that was destroying humanity had been eating away at her for months. Behind her, the council chambers were empty except for a few security guards. The alien representatives had all left when it became clear that helping humanity might put their own species at risk. Final transmission from Earth Ambassador Helen Price to the Galactic Council. The recording began. Price's voice was weak but determined. The Council has voted to maintain the quarantine around human space. They have decided that our biological diversity makes us too dangerous to approach. They claim that helping us might spread the plague to other species. Elena had watched this recording thousands of times, but it never became easier. She knew what came next. She knew how the story ended. But she watched anyway because forgetting was not an option. Humanity could not afford to forget what the galaxy was really like when the choice came down to helping or protecting themselves. The plague will kill us all within 6 months, Ambassador Price continued. We have asked for medical assistance. We have begged for evacuation ships. We have offered to surrender our weapons and submit to any restrictions the Council demands. The answer is always the same. The quarantine will remain in place until humanity is no longer a threat. Marcus shifted uncomfortably beside Elena. He had seen this recording before, but it still affected him. Most humans born after the Exodus had never seen the actual transmissions from Earth. They had learned the history in school, but learning about something and seeing it happen were very different things. What does no longer a threat mean? Elena asked, even though she knew the answer. She had asked this question every time she watched the recording. It was part of the ritual of remembrance that kept the truth alive. It means until we are all dead. Marcus replied quietly. The recording continued, and Ambassador Price looked directly into the camera. Her eyes were bright with fever, but also with something else. Determination, maybe, or hatred. Elena had never been sure which. If any humans survive this plague, Price said, I want them to remember what the Galactic Council did to us. I want them to remember that we asked for help and were refused. I want them to remember that 47 worlds full of people died while the galaxy watched. Most importantly, I want them to remember that when extinction came for humanity, we stood alone. The hologram flickered and disappeared, leaving Elena and Marcus standing in the blue glow of the memorial hall. Around them, other displays showed the Exodus ships that had carried the survivors away from Earth. Massive vessels built from whatever materials could be found. Ships that were never meant to travel between stars but had done so anyway because the alternative was death. Director, the alien fleets are still waiting at our borders, Marcus said, checking his tablet again. Fleet Command wants to know if there are any historical precedents for extended siege situations. Elena started walking again, moving deeper into the memorial complex. There are no precedents, Marcus. No species has ever been quarantined to extinction before. We are the first to survive it. They passed a display showing the construction of the first human warship built after the Exodus. The UES Liberation had been assembled in deep space using salvaged materials and desperation. Its captain had been Admiral Catherine Webb, a woman who had lost her entire family during the plague. Webb had become the voice of the new humanity. The humanity that had learned what the galaxy really thought of them. We asked for help and received silence, Elena recited from memory. We begged for mercy and received walls. They wanted us gone and they nearly got their wish. But we survived, and now they will learn what it means to be alone. Those words were carved into every human military academy. Every soldier memorized them. Every captain carried them into battle. They were more than just words. They were a promise that humanity would never again depend on the mercy of others. Director, some of the political leaders are saying we should help the refugees, Marcus said carefully. They say that holding grudges serves no purpose. Elena stopped in front of a massive display that showed the final evacuation of Earth. Hundreds of ships leaving the solar system carrying the last humans alive. Behind them, Earth burned with plague fires and radiation. The planet that had given birth to humanity was dying, and the galaxy had watched it happen. Marcus, do you know how many council species offered to help evacuate Earth when it became clear the planet was lost? Elena asked. None, Director. Not a single one. And do you know why they refused to help? They said it was too dangerous. They said helping us might spread the plague to their worlds. Elena nodded and activated her own recording device. She made daily log entries just like every other human in positions of authority. The logs were part of the great record that would survive even if humanity did not. Historical Archive Entry Director Rodriguez Day 112-847 Since border establishment, she began. The aliens continue to request passage through human space. They speak of shared threats and common enemies. They offer trade agreements and technology exchanges. They offer everything except acknowledgement of what they did to us. Elena paused the recording and looked at Marcus. The galaxy taught us that survival requires strength, not mercy. They taught us that the universe has no obligation to be fair. Most importantly, they taught us that when extinction comes calling you, stand alone or you die. Around them, the memorial halls stretched into darkness, holding the memories of 40 billion dead humans. Each name was recorded. Each world was remembered. Each moment of abandonment was preserved for future generations to study and understand. We remember, Marcus, Elena said finally. We remember because forgetting would dishonor the dead. We remember because the galaxy needs to understand that some lessons once learned can never be unlearned. The memorial halls fell silent except for the quiet hum of the displays. 40 billion ghosts looked down from the walls, and in their silence humanity found its answer to every alien plea for help. The galaxy had made its choice 3 centuries ago. Now they would live with the consequences of that choice forever. Fleet Admiral Kevin Torres stood in the Strategic Command Center on Luna Base, watching the tactical displays that showed alien fleets gathering along every human border. What had started as desperate requests for passage had become something much more dangerous. The major powers of the galaxy were losing patience with humanity's refusal to cooperate, and now they were showing their true nature once again. The command center was a massive room filled with holographic displays and control stations. Officers moved between the displays, updating information and coordinating with human fleets across the galaxy. Torres had been standing in the same spot for 6 hours watching as more alien ships arrived at the borders. Each new arrival made the situation more tense. Admiral, we are detecting significant military buildups in the Rigel sector, reported Commander Patricia Lee from the intelligence station. Her voice was calm, but Torres could hear the concern underneath. The hegemony is mobilizing their main battle groups. Energy signatures suggest they are preparing weapons systems. Torres nodded without surprise. He had been expecting this escalation for weeks. The aliens had tried diplomacy first. They had sent ambassadors and offered trade deals and mutual defense pacts. When humanity refused to listen, they had tried guilt and shame and appeals to mercy. Now they were moving to threats and force. It was exactly what Torres had predicted they would do. How many ships, Commander? Torres asked. Current count shows 237 vessels across all sectors, Admiral. Patricia replied, checking her displays. Mixed fleet composition with heavy emphasis on battle cruisers and assault carriers. Operations Director Nathan Ford approached with a data pad containing the latest reports from human border stations. Sir, our defensive positions are holding steady. Every human fleet commander is reporting the same thing. The aliens are testing our sensor networks and response times. Torres accepted the pad and scanned the information quickly. The aliens were being systematic about their approach. They were probing for weaknesses in human defenses. They were studying response patterns and communication protocols. They were preparing for war even if they had not admitted it to themselves yet. Attention all stations, this is Fleet Admiral Torres, he said, activating the fleet-wide communication system. His voice would reach every human ship station and colony within minutes. The words he spoke would be recorded and added to the historical archives that Dr. Rodriguez maintained on Earth. Future generations would know exactly what happened. During these critical days, I want to remind every human serving in our defense forces why we stand at these borders, Torres continued. 300 years ago, our species nearly died while the galaxy watched. They called it a quarantine to protect other species from contamination. We called it what it actually was. Attempted genocide through abandonment. The command center fell quiet as Torres spoke. Every officer present knew the history, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real again. Made it immediate. The aliens gathering at the borders were not just requesting passage. They were the same species that had watched Earth burn and done nothing to help. Sir, we have a priority transmission from the Council flagship, reported Communications Chief Danny Watson. It is marked as an ultimatum. Torres felt his jaw tighten. An ultimatum. After 3 centuries of silence, the galaxy was now demanding that humanity comply with their wishes. They had not asked for permission to quarantine human space. They had not asked for permission to let 40 billion people die. But now they wanted to issue ultimatums about how humanity should behave. "Put it through, Chief," Torres ordered. The main display activated, showing the interior of a hegemony command ship. Supreme Chancellor Morden stood at the center of the screen, flanked by representatives from the major council species. His metallic features were twisted with frustration and barely controlled anger. Behind him, Torres could see tactical displays showing the positions of human border defenses. "Admiral Torres," Chancellor Morden began. His voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. "The Galactic Council hereby demands that humanity open its borders immediately for refugee evacuation operations. Your continued obstruction in the face of galactic crisis constitutes an act of aggression against all civilized species." Torres stepped forward so that his image would be clearly visible to the aliens. His uniform bore the ribbons and medals of 30 years defending human space. Each decoration represented a battle fought against species that had tried to test human resolve. Each one was a reminder that humanity had learned to fight alone because they had been forced to fight alone. "Chancellor, let me make something very clear to you and your council," Torres replied. His voice was steady and calm, but every word carried the weight of 3 centuries of anger. "We did not start this isolation. You did. When you decided our species was too dangerous to save, you created this situation. Now you must live with the consequences of that decision." "Admiral, be reasonable," interrupted Council Speaker Valkyra. Her crystalline form reflected the lights of the command center in strange patterns. "The past cannot be changed. We must focus on the present crisis and work together to solve it." Torres laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Work together? Where was this spirit of cooperation when Earth was dying? Where was this desire to work together when we begged for medical assistance? Where was this reasonableness when 47 human worlds went silent and you did nothing?" Chief of Staff Rachel Martinez handed Torres a secure datapad containing the latest intelligence reports. The information painted a clear picture of what the aliens were really planning. They had positioned their fleets for maximum tactical advantage. They had coordinated their approach to cover all major human border crossings. They were preparing for a full-scale military action if diplomacy failed. "You speak of the greater good?" Torres continued, looking directly at the council representatives. "You talk about civilized species working together. But you forget that we remember what civilized means in your vocabulary. It means species that are useful to you, species that can contribute to your goals, species that are not inconveniently dying from plagues you are afraid to study." The aliens on the screen shifted uncomfortably. Torres could see them exchanging glances and communicating through whatever means their species used for private conversation. They were probably trying to figure out how to make humanity see reason. How to make humanity understand that the past was irrelevant compared to the current crisis. "Admiral, we are prepared to offer full council membership," said Ambassador Veltar, stepping forward. "Equal representation in all decisions. Full access to council technology and trade networks. All we ask is passage for our refugee fleets." "All you ask," Torres repeated. 3 centuries ago we asked for help and you refused. We asked for medicine and you said it was too dangerous. We asked for evacuation ships and you said we were too contaminated. We asked for anything at all and you gave us nothing but silence." Torres paused and looked around the command center at his officers. These were the descendants of the survivors who had fled Earth in salvaged ships. Their ancestors had built human civilization from nothing because the galaxy had refused to help. Now that same galaxy wanted humanity to forget the past and focus on their current problems. "You have 12 hours to reconsider your position," Chancellor Morden stated. His metal fingers flexed in what Torres recognized as a threatening gesture among hegemony warriors. "After that time, the Council will take necessary action to secure passage through your territory for humanitarian purposes." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in tense silence. Around the room, officers continued their work, but Torres could feel the change in atmosphere. Everyone understood what had just happened. The galaxy was preparing to invade human space, and they were calling it humanitarian action. Torres activated his personal log recorder. "Admiral's log supplemental. The Galactic Council has issued an ultimatum demanding we open our borders. They give us 12 hours to comply before they take military action. They call it humanitarian intervention. We call it what we have always called it, an attempt to force humanity to serve alien interests. He paused the recording and looked out through the observation windows of the command center. Luna's surface stretched away beneath them, scarred and lifeless. Beyond Luna lay Earth, still too poisoned for human habitation after 3 centuries. The galaxy had done that to humanity's homeworld, and now they wanted passage through human space. "Gentlemen and ladies," Torres said, addressing his staff, "it appears the galaxy has forgotten why they were afraid of us in the first place. It seems they have forgotten what 300 years of isolation taught us about survival. Perhaps it is time to remind them." The command center began preparing for war. The first shots were fired at Kepler Border Station when a hegemony battle group crossed into human space without permission. Captain Nicole Foster watched from the bridge of the UES Retribution as 12 alien warships moved past the boundary markers that had kept the galaxy out for 3 centuries. The aliens had finally decided that humanity would bend to their will through force. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Captain, the lead ships are charging weapons," reported Weapons Officer Greg Palmer from his station. His fingers moved quickly across the targeting controls as he tracked the incoming vessels. "They are broadcasting demands for our immediate surrender and safe passage to the inner systems." Nicole stood in the center of the bridge, watching the tactical display show the alien formation. The hegemony ships were large and heavily armed with weapons designed to fight other Council species. Their shields were calibrated to defend against familiar galactic technology. What they did not understand was that humanity had spent 300 years developing weapons that the galaxy had never seen. "All ships prepare for defensive action," Nicole broadcast to the human fleet. "Remember what they did to Earth. Remember why we stand alone. Show them what isolation taught us." The Kepler border station was not just an outpost as the aliens believed. It was a fortress built from the hull plates of the ships that had carried humanity away from their dying homeworld. Every piece of metal had been recycled and rebuilt into something stronger. Every weapon system had been designed by people who understood that survival meant being prepared for anything. As the hegemony ships approached, the station's defensive systems came online. Quantum disruptors emerged from hidden compartments along the station's hull. Energy cannons that operated on principles the Council had never studied began tracking the alien vessels. Humanity had not wasted the centuries of isolation. They had used every year to become stronger. "Firing quantum disruptors," reported Greg Palmer. The first salvo from Kepler Station hit the lead hegemony ship like nothing it had ever experienced. The alien vessel's shields flared and died in seconds. Its hull armor began to dissolve as the quantum field collapsed the molecular bonds holding the metal together. The ship came apart in a shower of sparks and debris that scattered across space. "Direct hit on Target 1, Greg called out. "Target destroyed. Moving to Target 2. On the tactical display, Nicole watched as the remaining hegemony ships tried to adapt to the unexpected resistance. They spread their formation and increased power to their shields. It would not help them. Human weapons had been designed specifically to counter everything the galaxy could throw at them. "Captain, we are receiving panic transmissions from the alien fleet," said Communications Officer Lisa Hart. "They are requesting immediate reinforcements and medical assistance." "Let them panic," Nicole replied. 300 years ago, we requested assistance and they let us die. Today they learn what it feels like to be abandoned." The second quantum disruptor salvo destroyed 2 more hegemony ships before they could return fire. When the aliens finally managed to shoot back, their weapons had little effect on the station's defensive systems. Human armor had been designed by engineers who understood that no one would come to help if the defenses failed. Every plate was hardened against every known weapon type in the galactic arsenal. "All human ships advance to attack positions," Nicole ordered. "Pursue and destroy any vessel that entered our space without permission." The UES Retribution and her sister ships moved forward with weapons charged and ready. The human fleet was smaller than the alien force, but every ship had been built for this moment. Every captain had trained for the day when the galaxy would try to force humanity to submit. That day had finally come, and humanity was ready. Lieutenant Benjamin Shaw at the communications station intercepted alien transmissions as the battle continued. "Captain, the enemy is broadcasting retreat orders. They are requesting permission to withdraw to the neutral zone." "Permission denied," Nicole replied, watching another alien ship explode under concentrated human fire. "They wanted passage through our space. They can have it in scattered pieces across the void. Across human space, the same pattern repeated itself. At Vega Checkpoint, Admiral Christopher Hayes led the defense against a Crixani assault force. The insectoid aliens had brought their hive ships expecting to overwhelm human defenses through superior numbers. Instead, they found weapons that could punch through their organic armor and destroy their command structures. The Crixani queens who had lived for centuries died in the first minutes of battle. At Centauri Gate, Commander Samantha Ross faced a combined council fleet with ships from 6 different species. Each alien race brought their own tactical doctrine and weapon systems. Each one discovered that humanity had studied their methods and developed countermeasures. The combined fleet broke apart under human fire and fled back toward council space, Captain. We have new orders from Fleet Command, reported Navigator Julie Adams. All border defense units are authorized to pursue retreating enemy forces to the neutral zone. Boundary. Nicole smiled as the UES Retribution accelerated toward the fleeing aliens. The hegemony ships that had seemed so confident an hour ago were now running for their lives. Their weapons had proven useless against human defenses. Their tactics had been anticipated and countered. Their technological advantage had turned into a liability when faced with innovations born from 3 centuries of isolation. Open a channel to the retreating vessels, Nicole ordered. The main screen activated, showing the bridge of the lead hegemony ship. The alien commander looked panicked and desperate. His metal face showed damage from weapons fire and his uniform was torn. Behind him, Nicole could see smoke and sparks from damaged systems. "This is Captain Foster of the Human Defense Force," Nicole began. "You came here demanding passage through our space. You spoke of humanitarian needs and galactic cooperation. You threatened us with military action if we did not comply with your wishes." The alien commander tried to speak, but Nicole continued before he could say anything. 300 years ago, we made similar requests to your council. We asked for help when Earth was dying. We begged for medical assistance when the plague was killing our people. We requested evacuation ships when our worlds were burning. Do you remember what answer we received? The alien's eyes widened as he understood what Nicole was saying. You gave us silence, Nicole continued. You gave us quarantine barriers and isolation protocols. You gave us abandonment when we needed help the most. Today we return the favor. Human space remains closed to all alien vessels. This policy will be enforced by military action, as you have just discovered. The transmission ended, and Nicole turned back to the tactical display. The surviving alien ships had reached the neutral zone and were not stopping. They continued toward Council space, broadcasting warnings about human military capabilities. Soon every species in the galaxy would know that humanity was no longer the weak and desperate refugees who had fled Earth centuries ago. Captain, we are receiving reports from all border stations, said Communications Officer Hart. Total alien casualties are estimated at over 400 ships destroyed or disabled. Human losses are minimal. Nicole nodded and activated her personal log. Captain's log supplemental. The Alien Council attempted to force passage through human space using military action. Their attack has been repelled with heavy enemy casualties. The galaxy has now learned what 3 centuries of isolation taught us about warfare. Outside, the bridge window space was filled with the debris of alien ships that had thought humanity would be an easy target. The wreckage would serve as a warning to any other species that considered testing human resolve. Some lessons had to be taught with fire and death. Today, the galaxy had learned one of those lessons. The war they had started was over before it had really begun. 1 year after the Border Wars, Fleet Admiral Kevin Torres stood once again in the Strategic Command Center on Luna Base, watching the galaxy burn. The tactical displays showed the same information they had shown for months. The Devourers continued their advance through Council space, consuming world after world, while the alien species fled before them. The great powers that had once threatened humanity now begged for help. That would never come. Admiral, we are receiving the monthly council petition for military assistance, reported intelligence. Director Carol Stevens. She carried a data pad containing the formal requests that arrived with clockwork regularity. Each petition was more desperate than the last. Each one promised greater rewards for human cooperation. Each one received the same response. Torres accepted the pad without looking at its contents. He knew what it would say because every petition said the same thing. The Council would offer technology sharing agreements and trade partnerships. They would promise equal representation in galactic government and access to their most advanced research. They would offer everything except acknowledgement of what they had done to humanity 3 centuries ago. File it with the others, Director. Torres said. Our answer remains unchanged. Through the observation windows of Luna Base, Torres could see the construction yards where humanity continued to build their future. New ships emerged from the assembly bays every day. Vessels designed with lessons learned from 300 years of isolation. Ships that needed no allies because they had been built by people who understood that allies could not be trusted when survival was at stake. Dr. Elena Rodriguez joined Torres at the window carrying her daily reports from the memorial halls. The historian had aged in the past year, but her determination remained strong. Every day she catalogued new evidence of galactic indifference to human suffering. Every day she added to the vast record that justified humanity's isolation. Admiral, the xenological studies indicate that, without human intervention, the devourers will consume approximately 60% of Council territory within 5 years, Elena said, reading from her notes. Some of our political leaders are suggesting we reconsider our position regarding assistance. Torres turned away from the window to face the woman who had spent decades preserving the truth about humanity's abandonment. Dr. Rodriguez, tell me how many human worlds died during the plague wars while the Council debated whether to help us. 47 worlds, Admiral. 40 billion people over the course of 18 months. And how many Council species offered medical assistance when Earth itself was declared uninhabitable? None, Admiral. Not a single species offered aid of any kind. Torres nodded and walked to his command station where he activated his daily log entry. These recordings had become ritual among human leadership, a way of ensuring that future generations would understand why humanity stood alone against the galaxy, why isolation was not just policy but survival. Admiral's log, 1 year after the border wars, Torres began. The galaxy continues to burn while they continue to request our assistance. They speak of shared responsibility and common threats. They talk about the greater good and the need for unity against extinction-level events. They discuss everything except the 40 billion human voices that went silent while they watched and did nothing. Outside the command center, a new ship was launching from the orbital shipyards. Torres could see its hull gleaming in the light reflected off Luna's surface. The vessel was named UES Memorial, and its armor plates bore the names of every world lost during humanity's darkest years. Every human who died during the plague wars was remembered on that ship. Every moment of abandonment was inscribed in its metal. Admiral, the Council is offering full membership with voting. Rights equal to the founding species, said Captain Barry Mitchell, approaching with the latest diplomatic communications. They promise access to their most advanced medical technology and military research. They say they are willing to formally apologize for past mistakes. Torres looked at his aide with the expression of someone who had heard similar offers many times before. The aliens always promised more when their situation became more desperate. First, they had offered trade agreements, then technology sharing. Now they offered apologies and equal status. Next, they would probably offer tribute and submission. Captain, let me ask you something, Torres said. If your family was dying from disease and your neighbors refused to help, would an apology 300 years later change how you felt about those neighbors? No, sir, it would not. And if those same neighbors came to you during their own crisis asking for help, what would you tell them? I would tell them to ask someone who cares about their survival. Sir? Torres smiled without humor and returned his attention to the tactical displays. The Devourers had consumed another system while they talked. 3 billion aliens had died in the past week alone. The numbers were staggering, but they meant nothing to humanity. The galaxy had taught them that individual lives only mattered when they were your own lives. The Council representatives are requesting a face-to-face meeting. Captain Mitchell continued. They want to send delegations to Luna Base to negotiate directly with human leadership. Absolutely not, Torres replied immediately. No alien sets foot on human territory. That policy extends to Luna Base and every other human installation. They can send their messages through subspace like everyone else. The memorial ship disappeared beyond Luna's horizon, carrying its cargo of remembrance toward the outer colonies. Soon other species would detect it passing through their space, and they would see the names inscribed on its hull. They would be reminded of what their ancestors had done to humanity. They would understand why no amount of desperation would change human policy. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, activated her own recording device as she prepared to return to the memorial halls. Historical Archive Entry Director Rodriguez Day, 130,212 since border establishment. The galaxy burns while we remember. The aliens die while we build. They face extinction while we grow stronger. This is not cruelty. This is justice delayed but not denied. Torres looked out at Earth rising over Luna's horizon. The blue marble that had given birth to humanity was still scarred and poisoned after 3 centuries. The radiation levels were dropping slowly, but the planet would not be habitable for human life for at least another 200 years. Every day that Earth remained dead was another reminder of what the galaxy's indifference had cost. Captain Mitchell, what is the current count of human colonies and installations? Torres asked. 143 worlds, Admiral. 57 major space habitats. 23 deep space research stations. Population approaching 8 billion across all human territories. Torres nodded with satisfaction. Humanity had not just survived their abandonment. They had thrived because of it. Being forced to stand alone had made them stronger than they ever could have been as part of the galactic community. The aliens had created their own worst nightmare when they decided humanity was too dangerous to help. The galaxy wanted us gone, Torres said, looking out at the stars that held human colonies. They got their wish. We are gone from their councils and their alliances. We are absent from their trade networks and their mutual defense pacts. We do not participate in their politics or their wars. They taught us that survival requires independence, not cooperation. The command center fell quiet except for the steady hum of the displays and computers. Outside Luna Base, the construction yards continued their work building ships that would explore new worlds far from galactic space. Humanity was expanding into regions where no council species had ever traveled. They were creating an empire built on the foundation of abandonment and betrayal. And if the Devourers eventually turned toward human space, Admiral? Captain Mitchell asked. Torres smiled with grim confidence. Then they will learn what 3 centuries of isolation taught us, Captain. They will discover that humanity remembers every lesson about survival. Most importantly, they will understand that we are willing to pay any price to remain free. The tactical displays continued their silent watch over a galaxy at war. Somewhere in council space, billions of aliens faced extinction, while humanity watched from behind their closed borders. The galaxy had made its choice 3 centuries ago when Earth burned and they did nothing. Now they would live with the consequences of that choice until the last star died cold and dark in the void. Humanity remembered. Humanity endured. And humanity would never again depend on the mercy of strangers who had already proven they had none to give. The price of abandonment had been paid in full.